So my name is Carrie Drinkwine, and I'm here to talk to you today about osteoporosis, osteopenia, and understanding reoccurring fractures in the body. So these are all ailments that many people, millions of people are actually plagued with every year in the United States and around the globe, but mostly in the United States. And I want to break down why this is happening in your physical body and what the solutions are. So thanks for taking your time out to watch this, and we're going to dive right in. So understanding, first of all, osteoporosis is, an actual diagnosable dis-ease. And I say dis-ease because disease really doesn't exist in any other species other than humans and house animals. But osteoporosis is a diagnosable disease that, consists of a significant loss of bone density and bone mass. And when we look at osteopenia, it's, if you have osteopenia, you're obviously predisposed and on your way to osteoporosis, but it's not a diagnosable dis-ease at that point. But with osteopenia, your body actually, the definition in the Western and the allopathic world is that your body isn't making new bone formation and bone density as fast as your body is dissolving it or reabsorbing what they consider old bone. So there's this concept that, like, I don't know, something just happens, your body's always reabsorbing old bone and making new bone. And so in the allopathic philosophy is that somehow that ratio's gotten off and your body is reabsorbing old bone and new formation isn't happening. And then moving into what are reoccurring fractures? Well, fractures obviously are hairline breaks in the bone. And we get like mini micro fractures even in our muscle tissues and bone every time we like run upstairs. So this is like a very common thing, like micro fractures happen and then the body repairs them. And that's like that process of getting rid of, reabsorbing the old or getting rid of the old bone and then repairing the new. And so where is the disconnect and how are we ending up with osteoporosis and osteopenia, and why is it affecting women disproportionately than men, and why is it affecting Americans disproportionately compared to other cultures and other countries? So I'm excited to break this down. And just as you come in, please mute yourself. I'll mute everybody right now. But what we're seeing is osteoporosis and osteopenia is very specifically related to two glands, the thyroid gland and the parathyroid gland. And these are the two glands that we're having difficulty with in the body. And so just to pause for a quick moment and to explain two hormones that are essential. So the thyroid gland actually produces what's called calcitonin. This is a hormone produced by the thyroid gland that lowers the levels of calcium and phosphate in the blood, and it promotes the formation of bone. So this is that like new bone formation. So when we think like, oh, we don't know why new bone isn't forming, we have to go look at the thyroid and is it producing proper levels of calcitonin? Most often you'll see people with osteoporosis or osteopenia with a hyperactive thyroid or an underactive thyroid or a thyroid condition of some sort. Not always, but it is common. And the thyroid can be functioning metabolically or producing proper levels of TSH, but still not be properly producing calcitonin. So bone is in a constant state of remodeling and remolding. So old bone is removed by cells, which is called osteoclastis, and then new bone is added by cells, which is called osteoblasts. So these are the things. Old is being removed, new is being formed. So that's actually regulated mostly by the thyroid gland and this calcitonin hormone produced by the thyroid. Now, the parathyroid gland is the other gland that's responsible for calcium utilization in the body. So the parathyroid hormone is actually called Parathoramone, Parathoramone, and PTH is the abbreviation, but it's also called Parathoramone or Parathin. And it's a hormone secreted by the parathyroid gland. And it regulates the serum calcium concentration and its effects on the bones, the kidneys, and the intestines. So this is a really important piece to understand the regulation of the serum calcium concentration that's being released into the body. So is it a lot? Is it little? What's happening? So this is regulated by the parathyroid gland and how properly we utilize calcium and how it's being secreted. So now we understand these two functions. So a very allopathic approach would be to say like, okay, well, this gland is the culprit, right? Well, no, we have to go back farther than that. How does the thyroid and the parathyroid start misregulating the use of calcium or not producing proper levels of calcitonin? So let's back this up and let's get simple on understanding the body. So the body is trillions of cells and two fluids. We have blood and we have lymph. The blood feeds the glands and the organs. The lymph cleans the glands and the organs. These are two essential pieces of the body. Now, the lymphatic waste, all your digestive and cellular waste, so what you eat, what you drink, what you breathe, what you put on your skin, goes into the lymphatic system. The lymphatic system brings that to the kidneys, and the kidneys must filter that out through the urine. When this system is backed up, you are getting an over excess of waste in the lymphatic system. So now we have acids because cellular waste is a pH of 3. Digestive waste obviously goes out through the colon, and then cellular waste is dumped into the lymph, and it's a more acidic pH. Now, second to that, when the lymph system is backed up. So it's like, just think of your bathroom. If you don't flush your toilet, you don't flush your toilet, you don't flush your toilet, soon it's overflowing. We have a backup of sewage. We have a backup of waste. Now, this waste accumulates in the body and it starts to create inflammation. This is the first defense that the body has to take to protect all 100 trillion of your cells, because we are a primate species. So your scientific species type is primate. And that means that we are an alkaline species. So our blood pH always has to stay at a 7.4 pH at all times. And every single action your body is taking all the time is to maintain that pH, to maintain your blood pH so you don't die, and to maintain your cell pH so you don't get cancer or metastasization of tissues and cells. So what does that look like? Okay, a lot of people will say like, isn't your body just designed to like monitor that? I was asked that question on Sunday, and absolutely it is, but at a cost. So here's the cost. When we are constantly having acid into the system, dumping it into the lymph's backed up, the kidneys are backed up. Now the body must buffer with one of 4 things. The first thing the body buffers with is water. So we wrap all of the cells in water. Fat, number 2. So the body will actually take toxins and tuck them inside of fat storage. Number 3 is calcium or cholesterol. So calcium is extremely base chemistry. So outside of us being trillions of cells and 2 fluids, we're also chemistry. That's it. It's very, very simple. So there's only 2 sides of chemistry. There's acid-based chemistry and there's alkaline-based chemistry, and then obviously base in the middle. The healing is base and alkaline. The destructive is acid. So now you've got a system full of acid and your body says, I don't know, I've got to get some base in here. So it's going to wrap the cells up in water. You're going to have inflammation throughout the body. And then it's going to start robbing calcium from its bone and connective tissue system as much as it possibly can, because it has to buffer acids. So every time you have that can of Coca-Cola, that cup of coffee, that piece of steak, which these are your acid forming foods, your body's like, thank you, calcium, thank you, calcium, thank you, calcium, thank you, calcium. And now we have bone density issues. That's one reason for bone density loss, is too many acids in the lymph system, and the lymph is taking your calcium to protect itself. The lymph is like, I'll take some of that, I'll take some of that, I'll take some of that. And it can affect specific areas in the body as well. So through a continuous robbing of calcium, we start to get lower bone density, we start to get weaker bone tissue. And then because also the bone in the connective tissue system is surrounded by acids, it's already weakened. It's in a dehydrated state, and it's in a low cellular ATP. So cellular ATP is adenosine triphosphate. That's a cell energy. So that's a cell that has lots of carbon, lots of oxygen, lots of energy. It's very, very healthy. When we have lots of waste surrounding our cells are starving. They're kind of shriveled up. They're not healthy at all. And we actually have to invite in the parasitic kingdom when we have all this excess waste in our system. So now we start to get bacteria that overgrow to clean up this waste, parasites that come in to clean up this waste. And then those start to eat at our bones and connective tissue system. And so then along with not only low bone density comes chronic pain. And these two go hand in hand in hand. You may not notice it at first, like you might be surprised by the diagnosis of osteopenia, and that's early onset, but soon it will turn into osteoporosis, in several cases from osteoporosis turn into rheumatoid arthritis, and so on and so on. Now, how does the thyroid and the parathyroid get affected by not producing proper levels of parathoramone or calcitonin? The gut. So we have to look at the GI, and the GI tract, when it gets damaged, starts to have, acid forming foods break down the gut. So that's your coffees, your sugars, your alcohols, your meats, your dairies, your glutens, your grains, all of your favorite foods. I understand, but these are acid forming foods and they're corrosive to the system. Now, the other major factor that we've seen in this, because I have to mention this because osteoporosis and osteopenia has significantly increased since we started spraying glyphosate. Glyphosate is a neurotoxic chemical pesticide that is all over our food, our water, our air, on all of your non-organic foods, and started being sprayed in 1980. Now, glyphosate is not only dangerous because it breaks down the microbiome, which is your healthy gut bacteria, but it also tears holes in the tight junctions of the gut lining. And so now when we have food coming in, whether it's acid or alkaline, or if there's any chemicals on it, anything, it goes leaking right into your immune system, which is your lymphatic system. So now we're adding more fuel to the fire. We're adding more acids into the lymph. Instead of just cellular waste being in the lymph, we've got all of the waste leaking into the lymph because there's no barrier anymore between the outside world and the inside world of your body. So now we have more acids. What happens when we have more acids? We need to take more calcium. The second component of gut health and understanding how this is important is that when we are depleted in our gut bacteria, so our healthy gut bacteria, the bacteria in your gut are what communicate with the brain. And they talk to the thyroid and the parathyroid and the pituitary and how to regulate its hormone function. So when we have thyroid issues, we actually have gut issues and lymphatic issues. When we have parathyroid issues, we have gut issues and lymphatic issues, and we need to look at the kidneys, the adrenal glands, and the lymphatic system. So remember, if you back up to the beginning, kidneys have to filter out acid waste. So obviously, if you have a backup of acids in your system, your kidneys are backed up and they are not filtering properly. The second piece is looking at the lymphatic health. So we have if the kidneys are backed up and the lymph is backed up and that acidosis is building and it's eating at your bone, your skin, your connective tissue, all of it. It's not just bone. And then the third piece, we have to look at the health of the adrenal glands, because the adrenal glands are an essential piece of what creates kidney filtration, what helps clean the lymph, what helps your body balance its essential minerals and hormone function. So when we're dealing with something like osteoporosis and osteopenia, we're actually dealing with kidneys, adrenals, lymph, and stomach and bowel health. And those four things have to be addressed, and they can be addressed simultaneously as one unit. So we need to move over to the alkaline side of the fence, the foods that clean, heal, hydrate, and repair the body. So that's your fruits, your berries, your melons, some of your leafy greens. And I want to make note that oftentimes this is approached through a food-based concept. It's like, oh, you're having a low calcium diet. That's almost never true. I mean, sometimes if you're like eating Cheetos for a living, probably true. But your foods have calcium in them. And it's really not about just like this idea of like, take more calcium. It's what your body's doing with that calcium. So if your calcitonin isn't properly functioning and your parathoramone, your PTH hormone, is just taking all the calcium you're putting in because you're buffering acids, it's not going to matter. So you can address this by getting alkaline and by supporting the parathyroid gland. If you're in a really like chronic state, like you have severe osteoporosis, continued reoccurring fractures happening, you need to be on a parathyroid glandular to support that gland to repair itself, and a bone and connective tissue system repair herb that's going to help your body start repairing the healthy reconstructive bone formations. Those are two essentials, but those two alone won't do it. If you continue to eat all acid forming foods and you don't repair the gut, you're going to have the same problems over and over. So we have to repair the GI. I apologize. I don't know why my notifications aren't turning off, but we have to repair the GI tract. And in order to repair the GI tract, we have to remove the chemical pesticides out, and we have to start repairing the gut lining. Give me just one moment because this is going to drive me batty. All right. So moving on to the last thing, anti-pain equals what do we do when we're in pain? We take an anti-inflammatory. Well, why are you inflamed? Because there's acidosis in the system. So anti-pain, anti-inflammatory equals anti-acid. So when we move into how do we do that, we need to get pro-cooling foods. So that's your fruits, your berries, your melons, your greens, all of those foods that are alkaline, base chemistry. So I want to go to just a couple of food solutions. Leafy greens are really high in calcium because a lot of people think we have to drink our milk. Well, milk is probably the worst thing you could do for osteoporosis or osteopenia. The milk is actually directly connected to deterioration of bone density. And we can see this based on how much we have here and how much cow's milk and cheese we eat in America compared to all other countries across the world. And you can find research articles on this. In America, sadly, you will not find this because the lobbyists from the dairy industry always say, eat your milk, get your calcium. It does not make any sense. We are not baby cows. We are not designed to have the hormone load that comes along with cow milk. That's designed to take a 50-pound calf and turn it into a 500-pound cattle in 1 year. Those hormones are highly acid-based. So what they're looking at from, a more macro perspective per se, like looking at your macros, meaning your protein, your calcium, all those sorts of things. When you look at the nutrition of milk, you can see like, okay, it has calcium. We should drink that. Except for they're missing the entire piece of it's loaded with undigestible hormones that are not meant to be in our bodies. Those hormones are highly acidic. Those acids, again, create inflammation, chronic pain, and leaching of calcium in our body. We see girls developing breasts super young. We see skyrocketing levels of osteoporosis, osteopenia. We see, lots of people breaking their hips like at young ages. So this concept that cow milk cheese is the calcium source we need is completely wrong. So here's other sources you can get calcium from: leafy greens, peas, lentils, fruits, lots of fruits actually, I'll list those in a moment, seeds like pumpkin seeds, figs, oranges, papayas, kiwis, mulberries, blackberries, and tangerines. Super, super high in calcium, and will be alkalizing, cooling, healing, hydrating, and reparative to the body. So you're going to start to repair bone and skin and connective tissue. So those are the main things I wanted to focus on. And then the last little piece that I want to talk about is you'll hear oftentimes doctors relating it to age and hormone changes in the body. Well, hormones don't really fluctuate that much if your gut health is on par. When your estrogen is skyrocketing, it's directly related to the adrenal health, overproducing estrogen, and that health is coming from the GI. The communication is off. We're having an overproduction of estrogen and an undersecretion of progesterone and testosterone. And we see after 35 years old in women specifically, we deplete our estrogens, our progesterone and testosterone starts to drop significantly. So there's foods that actually promote this continuous function of our progesterone and testosterone, and it's actually your plant foods. So I hope that's super helpful, and it's your amino acid foods. I think that's it. That's all I wanted to cover actually, is specifically understanding the connection of the gut, the connection of the kidneys, the connection of the adrenals, and most importantly, the connection to acidosis versus alkalinity. So when you have an overproduction, oversecretion of estrogen, estrogen, yes, is an acid-based hormone and it causes inflammation throughout the body. But why are you overproducing that hormone to begin with? And if your body is alkaline, it can handle a little bit of increase in estrogen when you're going through menopause or you're perimenopausal, and it's not going to cause fractures in your hips and breaking your foot and this and that. So I hope this video was helpful. I'm going to stop recording and ask open time for questions if anybody has any open questions for me.